Hello and welcome to the LLG Grapevine podcast. You're listening to Helen Bennett, LLG's Executive Director of Policy and Governance, and Dennis Hall, LLG Bulletin Editor.
Hello, everyone.
Now then, Dennis, there's an interesting article on the front cover of the MJ last week on the soon-to-be launch of the LLG professional body for monitoring officers. We do have a name, but we're keeping it under wraps for the moment. And now I would state for the record, we did not officially collude in the article, but it was a great piece nevertheless, good bit of promotion. And we will, of course, be running our own comms following the soft launch at the LLG conference, governance conference at the end of November. So exciting times.
Indeed. Now, I saw too that Jonathan Carr-West of the LGIU gave the initiative strong support in his weekly newsletter. And if I'm right in thinking, it was a report involving the LGIU that initially led to this recommendation of the creation of a new body, Helen.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Brown Jacobson, one of our corporate partners, kindly sponsored a piece of work that looked at governance failings and the pivotal role of the monitoring officer. And it absolutely came out of that. And we love Jonathan Carr-West here. We've had him speak on a number of occasions. Fascinating, brilliant individual. So
indeed,
it's excellent that he acknowledges that professional body is what we need. Now, the bulletin last week was quite a mixed bag. There's lots of talk about ethics as usual, Dennis.
Indeed there is. And first, let's look at the latest guidance from the Law Society. Now, the Law Society has included draft whistleblowing guidance in the second version of its evolving ethical practice framework for in-house lawyers. Developed by Protect, the whistleblowing charity, the guidance sets out key points for in-house lawyers to think about before raising public interest concerns. These include considering whether reporting alleged wrongdoing would breach legal professional privilege and situations when a solicitor comes under a duty to blow the whistle.
Well, that's the problem, isn't it? Legal professional privilege, and it's the line we're walking here. Categories of wrongdoing or malpractice covered include miscarriages of justice, damage to the environment, health and safety breaches, and of course, criminal offences. Now, Chancery Lane has been working with the Interdisciplinary Ethics Applied Centre at the University of Leeds to develop this the new ethics framework for that. And there's about, I think I'm right here, 34,500 plus in-house solicitors in England and Wales. Thank you, Dennis. The project is part of a 3-year programme that has become increasingly urgent amid the fallout from the Post Office Horizon IT inquiry.
Now, whistleblowing was identified as a key priority for in-house solicitors. The ethics framework's second iteration also includes a whistleblowing policy model template. Society President, indeed new Society President Mark Evans said, "I'd like to thank all members who helped us introduce several enhancements in the framework's second iteration. Whistleblowing is a key plank in a resilient, ethical organisational culture. However, in-house solicitors' duty to whistleblow could come into conflict with client confidentiality, making it difficult to know whether to report wrongdoing."
Well, that's right. That's got to be right. And Dr. Jim Baxter, he's a professional ethics and consultancy team leader at the Idea Centre. He said that whistleblowers can find themselves facing unemployment, legal costs, or ostracism from colleagues who see them as disloyal. In-house solicitors can feel stuck between a rock and a hard place, as well as all the difficulties any whistleblower faces. They may also risk breaching a professional duty of client confidentiality.
Indeed, and going on, he said the first version of our framework contains some provisions designed to make things easier. In this second version, we've partnered with Protect to approach whistleblowing head-on. Whistleblowing for in-house solicitors is never going to be easy or simple, but we hope, he said, that these resources will go some way to support those who want to serve the public interest by standing up against wrongdoing.
Well, other enhancements in the second version of the ethics framework include face-to-face training materials, enabling practitioners to use interactive scenarios in team workshops, and guidance on how to position the framework with employers, helping solicitors make the case for an empowered legal function. Now, this new guidance has been put out for consultation until the 26th of January So lots of time to comment, take a look, very important for our sector. Let's move to other news, and the House of Commons Library, big fans this end, as everybody knows. They've produced a note on the role of town and parish councils, setting out the background and impact of the new devolution bill. Now, I wanted to touch on this because a lot of our members perhaps don't have as much information about town and parish councils and the way in which they work than perhaps they ought to, Dennis.
Indeed. Indeed, Helen, because the new bill, of course, has this new duty upon local authorities to be involved in neighbourhood engagement, and clearly there's an expectation of enhanced involvement of town and parish councils with local authorities, the principal authorities.
Absolutely. Should we look back at the history, just to give a little bit of a
Right. Well, town and parish councils were first established by the Local Government Act 1894. The Local Government Act 1972 restructured local government within England and Wales, providing the legal foundation for the existence of today's parish and town councils. Parish councils can decide to call themselves town or community, neighbourhood or village councils. Parish councils are not a mandatory tier of local government and do not exist in all parts of England. They have traditionally been less common in urban areas, though a parish council can cover either a whole town or city, or a neighbourhood within it. Currently, roughly 40% of the population of England lives in an area with a parish council.
Yeah, let's look at some other jurisdictions. Scotland and Wales, they have community councils, and that's the equivalent of parish and town councils. And of course, that's a devolved matter. There's no equivalent to parish and town councils in Northern Ireland, which I found interesting. Now, of course, there are some interesting differences between parish councils and principal authorities. Examples include the fact that legislation regarding executive arrangements, so we're talking mayor and cabinets here, and overview and scrutiny, which is contained within the Localism Act, originally introduced in the Local Government Act 2000, does not apply to parish councils. The requirements for committees to be politically balanced, which lies in the Local Government and Housing Act 89, that doesn't apply to parish councils. And English parish and town councils, and this is interesting because not everybody knows this, they're not covered by the Local Government Ombudsman.
Interesting. And Helen, other differences also include the fact that there are limited requirements for audit for councils with an income and expenditure of under £6.5 million, a limit which applies to all parish and town councils. But let's turn very briefly now to how one creates a new parish and town council. And this will very much be in the mind of many as the current LGR phases run through their course. The procedure to create a new parish council can be found in the Local Government and Public Involvement in Health Act 2007. New parish and town councils are created via a community governance review. Now, the Community Governance Review must examine whether one or more parish councils should be created, and the outcome must ensure that the pattern of local government is effective and convenient, and reflects the identities and interests of the community in that area.
Yes, well, the government has no plans, as we understand it, to restructure parish and town councils. Responding to a written parliamentary question, this was back on the 17th of June this year, the government said parish and town councils are not in scope for local government reorganisation and will continue to operate as they do now. Now, the English devolution white paper that relates to local government reorganisation, as we said, says that the government will expect new councils, that being unitary authorities, to take a proactive and innovative approach to neighbourhood involvement and community governance so that citizens are empowered.
Yes, and closing the debate on the English Devolution and Community Empowerment Bill, the Minister for Local Government at the time, Jim McMahon, acknowledged calls on behalf of town and parish councils, but felt that neighbourhood area committees led by frontline ward councillors are the best route to achieve a simplified and standardised system of local area working and governance.
And speaking at the Local Government Association's annual conference, that was in July, the former Minister, MHCLG Minister Alex Norris, warned against creating two-tier structures via parishes. I think it's the former minister. Yeah, Of course it
Yes.
is. Yeah, what am I saying? Because what we've the trouble is, Dennis, it's hard to keep up, isn't it? Yeah, former minister.
Yep.
The following provisions in the bill have been identified by the Commons Library as potentially impacting town and parish councils. And that includes neighbourhood area committees. Regulations have not yet been published on those, let's not forget. Community right to buy and local audit. So there's a bit of a rundown for members who might not have much to do with local councils.
Yes.
But let's return once again, to our favourite topic of ethics.
Yes, at the end of last month, Ethics Commission Chair Doug Chalmers published a new blog, his first since the inception of the new commission. And he said, the creation of the Ethics and Integrity Commission is a step forward in how the UK maintains high standards in public life. This new organisation, which takes over from the Committee on Standards in Public Life, will play a more visible and strategic role across the public sector. Essentially, he said, we want to help people in public roles, whether appointed or elected, to act in ways that serve the public.
Well, the standards regime sits at the intersection of public trust and public administration when it's working. And it's supposed to ensure that decisions are taken fairly, transparently, and in the public interest. And when it stumbles, confidence can quickly evaporate.
Well, exactly. That's the point. We see it so often in the news, don't we, in various parts of the public sector. But Chalmers went on and said standards matter to the public, to good government, to our economy and our international reputation. And they aren't something that can be set once and then left alone. The way government and public bodies work continues to change. New technology, new services, and changing expectations from the public all bring fresh challenges. The systems, processes, and guidance that support ethical behaviour in public life need to keep pace, and the EIC will endeavour to make sure that they do.
Well, somebody needs to. I mean, going on, Chalmers said that a key area or focus for the new commission will be the codes of conduct in relation to the government's Hillsborough law. We've reported on that before. Really important piece. Game-changing, I think, actually, in terms of ethics. We've been asked by the Prime Minister, he said, to look at how public bodies can develop, distribute and enforce such codes so that they affect meaningful, and this is what it's got to be, meaningful cultural change, ensuring public officials act with honesty, integrity and candour at all times. And it's the duty of candour. I love that. I just think that if it's done in the right way, that's going to be instrumental within the sector. Let's not forget, this is a substantial piece of work. Codes need to feel practical and relevant to those who use them, and that requires careful development by the public body concerned.
Indeed, and oversight needs to be proportionate and effective. And Chalmers said, we aim to build a centre of excellence for this work, a place where organisations can go to find and share good practice and benefit from a consistent approach to standards. As our own capability grows, Chalmers said, we want to support codes and ethics discussions so that they become a normal and confident part of workplace culture, not just documents that sit in a file or on a wall somewhere.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And he also said that one of the tools we have as the Commission is an annual letter to the Prime Minister. Now, that will be a public report on the health of the standards landscape and where we believe attention is required. The government has committed to responding to that annual letter within a reasonable time frame, and that commitment gives this tool real weight. It allows us to draw attention to systemic issues and the need for system upgrades.
Indeed. And the EIC was established on the 13th of October and has already published an implementation plan which sets out an 18 to 24-month plan for the transition of the Committee on Standards in Public Life into the Ethics and Integrity Commission. And of course, we'll report further on all developments in the work of the EIC.
Absolutely. And a slight bit of breaking news. He's an incredibly busy man, Mr. Chalmers, but we are hopeful that we might very well have him at our governor's conference to speak.
Excellent.
So, yes, it would be real coup. So watch this space.
Yes.
Now let's continue moving forward on something which obviously has hit the legal landscape with just a massive bang, and that's the case of Mazur. And I blogged about it last week, and we've covered it here. And there's so much commentary, especially on social media. What do we know now? Well, the Legal Services Board has approved litigation rights under a fast-tracked application process from Silex Regulation, CRL, to allow legal executives to obtain standalone litigation practice rights with immediate effect.
Now, Helen, as I understand it, the LSB decision notice states that, in summary, the amendments to the regulatory arrangements are as follows. First, removal of the requirement for existing chartered legal executives and new applicants seeking authorisation for the conduct of litigation to also seek authorisation for rights of audience at the same time. And second, inclusion of the rules to be followed for authorisation of the conduct of litigation and separately for advocacy practice rights to deliver the proposed objective of uncoupling these practice rights. Difficult to follow this, but there's more. Third, new titles to be issued for chartered legal executives who solely hold authorisation for the conduct of litigation. And finally, inclusion of 3 new litigator specialist pathways in the practitioner authorisation rules for the new education standards.
It is difficult to follow what they're trying to say. You have to kind of unpick it. Yeah, it's not as clear as it really could have usefully have been.
No.
But there might be reasons for that. This follows, of course, Silex Regulations application for approval of alterations. This is what it's come from, to its existing regulatory arrangements relating to standalone litigation rights. It will be effective from the 31st of October, so it's already in place.
Yes, I think I'd need legal advice before I applied. It just sounds so complicated.
Yeah, I'll give you some later, Dennis. Meanwhile, and by the way, I do think that there are issues with the grant of litigation rights due to portfolio changes. This doesn't look like it's catching everybody, especially those that were already involved in like non-contentious, who have risen in the ranks in local government. But let's take a look at what else is happening, because the Legal Services Board has launched a regulatory review of advice and guidance provided to the profession on the conduct of litigation by approved regulators and regulatory bodies.
Yes, that's right. And the review will consider whether there's been an adverse impact on the regulatory objectives arising from the actions or omissions of approved regulators. The review will also consider whether appropriate steps were taken to prevent and mitigate consumer harm.
Yeah, and there's a definite need for some sort of understanding as to what's gone on here. My preference would be, at first instance, though, for a more definitive action plan to address the impact, certainly within the local government sector, because it's such a different sector. We're not regulated. The councils are not regulated. So it seems this, I said in the blog, there's a disconnect here. A lot of these safeguards are to protect the public. This is a completely different thing in local government. And personally, and I'm going to put this out there, personally, I believe that for the local government community, there should be some sort of grandfather provision, grandparenting provision for our experienced members.
Indeed. Well, the LSB has published and outlined the scope and impact of the Mazur case. The SRA have issued a guidance document on conducting litigation, and the Law Society has produced guidance for the sector in the wake of the judgment. But really, this has been a real mess, Helen.
Yeah, it really has. There's no dissent from me there, Dennis. And none of this is the last word. LLG are taking this matter extremely seriously, and there will be more from us in due course. Actually, that's my big thing this week. And we are also, I should add, specifically covering this issue at our governance conference. And that's available as book now on the LLG website. And we've got, I believe, a Casey talking to us in relation to that. Lots going on at the governance conference. I don't like to do big push marketing, but actually there's some big things hitting right now. And if you want to be involved in that's the place to be. Just to add, all links to publications that we're sort of referencing in this podcast can be found in the LLG bulletin. Now, we often cover the local government ombudsman, but let's turn our attention to the housing ombudsman, Dennis.
Well, yes, the Housing Ombudsman has published a revised special investigation process aimed at assisting landlords, including local authority housing companies, to resolve issues earlier without the need for a full investigation.
The Ombudsman said the process allows it to intervene when it sees a landlord performing less well than others on a series of key metrics. The revised process uses a tiered approach that encourages landlords to detect and fix problems early. And the Ombudsman said each tier in the process brings a higher level of scrutiny.
Indeed. Now, it works like this. Landlords will be asked at Tier 1 to provide the Ombudsman with a response plan of how they are resolving the issues seen by the Ombudsman in its casework. At Tier 2, if there is a continued lack of improvement, the Ombudsman will follow up with the landlord.
This will also apply if performance gets worse, despite having previously undergone Tier 1 engagement. Now, Tier 3 is the stage of full investigation, where the Ombudsman will seek to identify root causes for a landlord's poor performance, and it will make recommendations for improvement through a full report.
The revised process has been trialled with a range of organisations, including the London Borough of Redbridge and Norwich City Council. Now, Richard Blakeway, Housing Ombudsman, said complaints are vital tools for learning and continuous improvement. And going on, he said, our casework sometimes reveals similar service failings repeatedly happening. It's important to look at what sits behind a complaint and avoid treating them as isolated incidents.
Oh, well, I think that's got to be right. He also said that joining the dots between complaints can inform targeted interventions, whether those relate to policies, processes, people, or systems. And he added this new approach to special investigations enables us, i.e., the Ombudsman, to engage landlords earlier, sharing our insights and encouraging the landlord to identify how it can prevent service failings reoccurring.
And going on, he said, this proactive approach to learning from complaints should deliver better outcomes both for residents and landlords, improving services, strengthening trust and preventing complaints in the first place. This, he said, is integral to embedding a positive complaints culture across the sector.
Absolutely. Let's move to our final item. I feel like I've waxed lyrical today a bit. Apologies for everyone. We're on our final item. Stay with us. Let's turn to an independent review of social work regulation, including the establishment of Social Work England, now that it's had its first 5 years of operation. So this is a review which will effectively assess how Social Work England has discharged its statutory functions and delivered against the objectives set out in the Children and Social Work Act of 2017. Let's remind ourselves of those. That was to protect, promote and maintain the health, safety and well-being of the public, promote and maintain public confidence in social workers in England, and promote the main proper professional standards for social workers in England.
The review will also assess the delivery of the Secretary of State for Education's powers as set out in the Act in relation to both the oversight and funding of Social Work England and the functions discharged by central government. And the review will also explore whether changes and improvements could be made to their functions and operations to enable more efficient and effective regulation and also improve the standards of social work practice.
Yeah, well, the review is led by Dame Annie Hudson, a former social worker, Director of Children's Services, Chief Executive of the College of Social Work and previous Chair of the Child Safeguarding Practice Review Panel. So pretty well qualified, it seems to me, to do the job.
Yep.
The review, I'm sure she'd be delighted, I think that's it. The review will be supported by an expert reference group who will act as an advisory forum to help shape and the review and interpret evidence. As part of the review, Dame Annie would particularly like to hear from people who have a connection with social work, including social workers, organisations that provide social work or social services, organisations that train, and anyone who's currently or has previously been supported by a social worker.
Indeed. The deadline for submissions is Wednesday, the 26th of November, and the terms of reference are set out in the Department for Education website link in the bulletin. The review will also assess how effectively Social Work England is discharging its statutory functions and delivering against the overarching objectives set out in the Act. And it will also assess the establishment of Social Work England and the transfer of powers from the Health and Care Professions Council to Social Work England.
Yeah, and it's also going to look at the Social Work Regulations 2018 to understand how Social Work England is delivering against the legislation in coordination with other bodies concerned with the delivery of social care functions in England and the devolved administrations, and evaluate its governance and accountability mechanisms, including reporting on activities and providing information and advice.
In addition, the review will also consider the current model of professional regulation for social workers and make recommendations on whether any changes to SWE's delivery of its functions are needed to enable more efficient and effective regulation and/or to improve the standards of social work practice.
And on that note, we got there, Dennis.
We did certainly, with a few little titters on the way.
Well, that always makes it enjoyable for sure. That's it for another edition of the podcast. You can read more on the items discussed today and many more besides by going to bulletin number 38, available on the LLG website now. So it's goodbye from me.
And from me too. Bye-bye now.